during this time, I changed all of my, almost all of my recipe. So everything is over here is a new one. And I changed the ingredient, everything, and I hope everybody like it, so I can make money. I don't know how to talk about this. I try to make a good thing. That's all what I'm doing. I didn't have a, the story of my topic at all, but every time I make it, I try to make a good product as possible I can every time. That's it.
My name is Barber, and I'm essentially Chim's guest here for this month, and it would seem to be an unusual pairing, the pottery and the metal fish, until you see them together. I think it works out pretty nicely. As different as our backgrounds and our mediums are, our approach to the work is very similar. We've had a lot of talks about this, about the business of making art as just kind of a serendipity. You spend a lot of time developing your technique and figuring out how to make things work, and then as you're working in your studio, you just kind of let your mind disconnect, because really your body knows more about this stuff in a lot of instances than your intellectual mind does, and your intellectual mind can get in the way often. So you just kind of get in the groove, you can call it that, and stuff just comes out. And we both do that. And there are parts of the work that seem to be very systematic and rhythmical, but they're not worked out beforehand. They're just a consequence of constant practice and constant doing and constant repetition until it becomes just almost automatic. And so that's how we both work. Even though our work is entirely different in physical presence, it's really the same approach. And I think this is universal for artists. You know, when you first start out making art, like particularly in art school, God, what agony that was. I was always 5 minutes behind the curve. My constant response when I was in school was, what? I spent the whole time that way. And it wasn't until years later that I just started coming into my own. I always figured I was a late bloomer, but I was fortunate enough when I finished college and got an art degree. I thought, oh my God, how am I going to make all that? Oh, geez, you know. And I fell just by accident into museum exhibit work. I started out here at the Natural Science Museum in 1973. And I started doing exhibits. I started at an entry-level job, and I was working with Dr. Langston, and I was doing all the steel work on that big dinosaur that's in the middle of the floor there, the Diplodocus. And I worked on that with him for 2.5 years. And that dinosaur is 75 feet long. And it was one of those things where I had never imagined, as much as I loved dinosaurs as a child, I never imagined that as an adult I would have an opportunity to work on things like that. I just fell in love with it. And so over the years, we were working in molding and casting. We were going out in the Gulf and catching a lot of these specimens for the museum. And things like the sharks, we have to make molds and then cast them in fiberglass. The biggest one we did was a 20-foot-long basking shark. It was an enormous thing. We used 2.5 tons of plaster to make the molds. And so it's pretty big scale stuff. So things just kept evolving, and in about the mid-90s or so, everything in the exhibit business started to go to computers. And that has a lot of attraction, and of course people just jump right into that immediately, but I sort of got left behind because my skills were all hand skills. I knew molding and casting, I knew how to make rocks and trees, I knew how to do all this kind of stuff, background painting and atmospheric painting, and it was all just going away. So I thought, well, what better time to just jump out and be an artist on my own, and I did. And I think once you get over the fear of that 30-day cash flow roller You can do this thing. And as an artist, I'm constantly doing other things. My wife can tell you I do teaching and contract work and strange projects that people bring to me, and a lot of them just one-of-a-kind things. But I really enjoy the time I'm able to spend in the studio working with the hammer and the steel. This is 20-gauge sheet metal. This is about the same thickness of steel that your car is made out of. And it works very, very well under the hammer. Metal has an amazing cellular structure. It's one of the few elements we have that's slippery. Imagine, if you will, a deck of cards, 52 cards like this. Put them on a table, take your hand and just spread them out like that. They go right, and they're long and skinny. And then take your hand and push them back together. Metal will do this time after time after time, which is why every time you hit the steel with the hammer, it shrinks in that little spot and expands around it. And that's why you can take a shape like this that starts out flat and make it roll like this. And it'll do it every time for you. As you develop your skill with the hammer, it becomes almost like a song. It becomes a little percussion, and you get that groove in your. You know how they say the rock and roll bands, drummers just get tap happy? You know, they just it's the same thing. You just go for hours. A fish emerges on it. So that's basically what we do, and I'm delighted that you've all come out. Thank you so much for coming, and we've enjoyed putting this together, and we hope you'll enjoy it too. So thank you very much.
And I will do demonstration in the 17th, 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. If you have a time, please come in there.
Whenever you are.